All right, cool guys. So we're gonna talk a little bit first about positioning, which is something I should have gone over yesterday. I was wondering why I still had a little bit of time left after class. So we're gonna start this from scratch. The first thing we're gonna do, so this is only gonna take about 10-15 minutes, and it's just so you know how to lay things out on the page. So you're gonna be able to create a container, okay? And inside of that container, you're gonna be able to adjust things in different places in that container. And then you're gonna know the difference between position absolute and position relative. Okay, so let's create just a whole new, you know what? I'm just gonna create a new project. CSS positioning. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a div with a class of container. Okay, and then we're going to create 3 divs with a class of box1 or box, and yeah, this would just be box, and I'm going to call this one box1. And I'm going to do the same thing for box 2, 3, and 4. Okay. These guys are going to need some height and width. So the boxes are going to have a height of 200 pixels and a width of 200 pixels. And the color of light blue.
Don't you need the period next to the box?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Okay, so option B will open this up. Oh, what's going on here? Box, class box, box 1, 2, 3. Are these my boxes way over here?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, I gave it a color instead of a background. Color. That's what happens when you live code, man. And let's give them a border of 1 pixel solid pink so that we know where they are.
Pink.
Pink? Yeah, pink. Thank you. Ooh, could barely see that. And let's give the body a background. Black, just so we can see things a little better. Cool. So we've got 4 boxes that are inside of another container. All right, this class container, and we don't even see the container at all. If we want, we try to give the container some color to see what's going on there. Background, yellow. All right, cool. Is that bright? You guys like that? Waking everybody up? I hear a little sunlight in the morning. It's good for the eyes. It resets your circadian rhythm. So, all right. So right now, the way that this is laid out is this is just the normal flow. There's no position relative, absolute, nothing. It's just position regular. All right. When you don't specify a position, it defaults to something similar to a relative position. So if we want to move these items around, 1, 2, 3, 4 here, we're going to have to set the parent container, okay, to position relative, okay, and then we have to set the inner boxes to position absolute, and then we'll be able to move these inner boxes to whatever position we want within the within the container here, within the context of this container. So blah blah blah. If we set the container to position relative, does that change anything over here? Nothing yet. Okay. And then if we change these to position absolute, things are going to look all wonky now because we're not telling them where to sit yet, where to live. So if we come back over here, they all stack up and go to the corner because they all believe they should be at position top 0. All right. So because the container only takes the height of the things that are inside of it. So since they all moved to position 0, the container shrank with it. So they're all just stacked one on top of each other. What about the width? Yeah, I think it's because of the position. Yeah, we could change that here. I don't know why that shrank, to be honest with you. That's something we could probably Google with 100%. And it gets rid of the width too. I think it's when you change it to position relative, it might change the display type on this. So instead of 100%, let's see what we do if we do like 900 pixels. Oh, a little too many of those. Nothing, yeah, so that's interesting. Height 800. So I didn't prepare for this at all today, so I didn't test any of this beforehand to see what would happen. So we give it a width and a height of 800 by 800. So this is essentially the canvas now that we can move these things that are stacked right here on top of each other within in here. And the way that we move them is to just literally give them a, so we're gonna do box 1 first. You give them a top for the amount of pixels that you want to move them from the top. So let's say we do top, how big are these boxes? 100 pixels each? No, 200 pixels. So let's do top 200 pixels, and now you're going to see that that first box is going to move 1 down relative to the rest. So here it is now. Now let's get these guys' numbers too so that we know which one is which. So that's still 1, but box number 4 is still stacked on top of 3 and 2 and 1. So if we want to move box number 4 to the right side over here, we can just do, back in our code, we'll do another class for box 4, and we just do right, 0 pixels. And now it's over on the right-hand side. Okay? I just gave it right and where to start from the right. So if I do right 200, it should move from here to right around there. Nice and tall. All right. Yeah. And then we have the same width here. Yeah. So yeah, that's essentially how you move the boxes. You could also use percentages. So this would be 50% of its containing element or parent. Left 50%. Or maybe I'm lying to you guys. That should work. Box 2. Still stuck at the bottom. All right, I guess not. Left 200 pixels. All right, so yeah, we can do percentages. I thought we could. My bad. So this is pretty much relative and absolute positioning. Again, relative position is the parent container, and then absolute is where you want to move inside of that parent container. If we have just relative position, the objects are going to fall into the normal document flow that we spoke about yesterday. So the items are just going to stack. If we want to change the position of those items once they're stacked, and we set them to position relative. Hold on, let me keep the box here. Let's keep this box as relative. Let's get rid of these styles here. So it's just gonna flow back how we had it before. Okay, so in this state, if we, instead of doing position absolute for the boxes that are just stacking up right here, we leave them at position relative, and then we give them different measurements like left, right, top, bottom, they're gonna move relative to their own position in the document flow. So let's say we gave box number 3 a top of 10 pixels, box number 3 is gonna move down a little bit this way. If we gave box number 2 a left of 50 pixels, it's going to move a little bit this way. Okay? So we could do the same thing we were doing. Again, the only thing that I've changed now is that I've changed the position to relative position. So box 2, left, and this is, let's say, 50 pixels. So it just moves from where it was in its own document flow, not relative to its parent, but relative to itself in the document flow. Does that make sense, guys? How do you feel about that? That's all I'm going to cover for this. Any questions?
Yeah, can you talk a little more about how the container works? Like, you can position a container exactly like relative to the, like, how do you position a container? Like, what if we wanted the whole thing on the right side, or?
Yeah, so since the container is relative, and let's say you wanted it on the right side, what you could do is you could just give it margin left auto probably, and we should be able to move it to the right side. So if we go back to making the boxes relative and the container absolute, no, I'm sorry, relative. I'm typing really bad, my hands are freezing up here today. It's like I got arthritis. Position relative, and these are going to be position absolute. So back to how we had them before. But you only want to mess with the container now. Again, because the container is position relative, we can actually just move it right from here if we wanted to. If we wanted to move it from left to right, let's say 100 pixels, we would do left 100 pixels. And now if we go back over here, these are going to stack up again, but this container is going to move to the left by 100. See that?
What's the overflow there?
The overflow is because we still have this guy left 50 pixels.
Gotcha.
Okay. What's up?
Wouldn't, like, if I were to just look at it, I would have just done container absolute and then boxes to make that relative. Because aren't all those boxes in the container?
All those boxes are in the container, yeah.
Yeah, so shouldn't that work too?
Shouldn't what?
If I were to make a container absolute and make the boxes relative? Or
Yeah, but that's, again, the container is going to move now absolute to the parent, which is the body, okay?
Okay.
But the boxes are going to be relative to where they're normally supposed to be, so you're going to break the flow if you do it that way.
okay.
So, but you can do that. It's just now the boxes are still going to stack up on the left. The container is going to move wherever it wants to go. And then if you do any kind of positioning on those boxes, it's going to be relative to themselves, not relative to the parent container, because you set it as absolute.
Is that why you did like the class box?
Mm-hmm.
Like box and then box 1, box and then box 2?
Is that what the class box? Yeah, so the reason why I did 2 classes is so I can give all these similar styles. And then this, I gave these a different class of box 1, box 2, and box 3, only so that I could move them around. But since all these styles are the same for all these boxes over here, so box 1, box 2, box 3 all share the style of position absolute, height 200, width 200, the same color, but there's one variable that we can change, and that's the position of the boxes. So that's why there's 2 class names there. Sorry, you can catch next.
So if we wanted to make the container like transparent and have a border around it and like align it all the way to the left, we do position like left or like I don't understand, like left?
If you wanted to make the container transparent,
Yeah.
well, how do you make anything transparent?
So leave the background?
Yep. So there's one thing called RGBA that gives you 4 colors. All zeros is black, and then the last one is opacity. 1 being completely opaque, 0 being completely transparent.
Okay.
So I could set this to 0 and it could just be completely transparent. Or if I set it to 1, it'll be black. So let's set it, let's make this white instead so you can see, and then we can see the black background behind it. So right there, it's completely opaque, and it's white. So we can do here, oh, what happened here? Escape. Damn it, it changed all my colors on me. That's all good. Now we could do 0.5, and it will have an opacity. Now the black is seeing through a little bit. We can't, because I changed this color. I wish we would have just kept it all at 255. You see how it's looking grayer?
Yeah.
And then if we bring the opacity down to 0, it's just gonna be the black showing all the way through.
Gotcha.
Cool? All right. And then what was the other thing?
Oh.
Hold on, he had a second part to this question.
I wanted to like position it all the way to the left. I put a border.
Position it all the way to the left. So that's where margins come in.
Okay. I thought you changed the position entirely.
You don't have to. Margin left 100% maybe. Let's see how that works out. So it moves it, but it moves it outside of the width of the screen.
Wouldn't that be 100% from the left? So maybe it's like 0%?
What do you mean?
Margin left 0%?
Yeah, so if you do auto on the left,
Okay.
it'll keep you there. 0%.
But when you say like margin, oh, never mind, it's the opposite of position. Because left actually makes a margin on the left, and position is like position.
Yeah. So if you do left, you're pushing from the left side essentially. So if you're adding a left margin, remember margin is invisible, so all that's going to be invisible right there. So we just did auto, and it knows how to do it. If we wanted to center it, instead of doing margin left, we could do margin left and margin right. And now it's centered on the screen. Cool. A shorthand for that is margin auto, but that will give us auto map margin on the top and the bottom also. So we could do 0 auto. That means 0 up at the top, 0 at the bottom, and then auto on the sides. Or whatever kind of margin you want to give it on the top and bottom. We could do, I don't know, 50 pixels and then auto.
Gotcha.
Cool? Megan?
So when we did our buttons, we did that they were relative, and the container, we didn't set it to any position. But what happened was, we couldn't, and like it was text too, we couldn't move it down. Like it would just stay on the same plane. It wouldn't go down.
The buttons wouldn't go
It was
down?
it was the buttons and it was text. Like we have them in different containers.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was on the same plane. Like we floated them,
Mm-hmm.
and they were on the same plane,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't move. They would move left and right, but they wouldn't move up and down.
Yeah,
It's
so
relative.
when you float things, they're gonna stack one next to each other, right? So if you have something like this, relative is gonna, floats is gonna make this one move over here. If you have another one down here, it's gonna move over here until you have no more width, and then whatever overflows is gonna come down and hopefully make your box grow or collapse the entire box, and we gotta do a clear fix on it. If they weren't moving, maybe you needed to give it something else like padding or margin. If you're trying to set it relative and just making a move, there might have been another style or another position that was overriding it somehow. So you're saying that they were just relative, and then you were trying to give them like left 50 pixels, and it just
move out up and down.
move them up and down. Yeah. So did you do like top and then 50 pixels, and it wouldn't move?
Yeah, with pixels or with percentages.
I'd have to see it. I'm not sure. Yeah, show me that after class, and I'll take a look and I'll see what we can do. Cool. Any other questions on this? All right, great. So, time for Bootstrap. All right. Bootstrap 101, because CSS is hard. All right. So, what is Bootstrap? What are we going to cover today? These are the learning goals. First is where to find information. Number 2 is thinking in Bootstrap. Bootstrap and CSS are 2 different ways, pretty much completely different of designing your website. How to import Bootstrap into your projects, if you don't already know, that's fairly easy. Then we're going to use Bootstrap classes for padding and margin, and then we're going to talk about Bootstrap classes in general. The Bootstrap grid system and how to use it, and then overriding Bootstrap classes. Okay, cool. So where does Bootstrap come from? And the reason why I pose this question is because in my first code example here, I have this HTML page that has no CSS whatsoever. There's no styles, there's nothing in here at all. There's just class names, okay? And if we open this in the browser, it's all super nice looking and styled. It's got a navigation bar that when we do this, it just does this for us. What the hell? Yeah, how does it do that? You know, we didn't add one single style. These things collapse on each other and then look good. The text is a little different. So where's Bootstrap coming from here? Like what's happening? Anybody know?
A gem.
A gem. It's a good guess. Unfortunately, it's wrong in this particular situation. So all we're doing is we're linking a style sheet from the internet, like you normally would from your projects, except that it's just the link. So when we do here link rel style sheet, Max CDM, Bootstrap CDM, blah blah blah, we're actually linking the Bootstrap style sheet. If we follow this and we go to this link, we're gonna see this is all just a bunch of CSS that's just minified. Means that it's just compressed together, so it's got no spaces, nothing, but it's all valid CSS. And those are all the rules, just unformatted. So Bootstrap is just a ton of CSS with their own class names, essentially. So Bootstrap just comes from that class name. That's from those classes that we essentially use on our elements in our HTML. So the way that we add styling without adding CSS in Bootstrap is by just adding classes to all our elements. So you have like an H1 tag, and then you gotta give it a class of display and a number, and it'll give you the height or whatever for it without you going and changing the H1 tag in your CSS. You could have a div class of container, and what it's going to do is it's going to shrink everything down for you inside of that class and contain everything like with a little bit of margin on both sides. So there's all these classes that we can add to this to the HTML that we're already writing without writing any CSS whatsoever. To use Bootstrap means to use classes for most of your styling. So with Bootstrap, you're just gonna add a bunch of classes. Once you're done, if you don't like the way it looks, then you gotta be able to come back and then override the classes that you've added to your stuff. First of all, what the heck is a container in Bootstrap? So Bootstrap has, let me close this guy down here, we don't need that. A class called container. Okay, so this container class, if I remove this here, and we go back to our, to this guy, if I remove that container class, all this space in the sides is gonna disappear, and I'll show you right now. And this is just me removing a class, again, not touching any CSS. See how everything just spread out? Okay, so a container just kind of keeps your things in order together like that. Cool. So, padding, margin, and other fun styles. So how much padding and margin do you think we have over here? A little bit? Okay. If we want to add padding and margin to different items on our page, again, it's the same thing. All we're doing is we're adding classes. We are not adding any CSS to our page. So let's inspect this super dope header right here. Okay, and it's H1 class text center. So even to center the text, they're just using a class. All right, and then super dope header is in a strong tag. So let's find it here, super dope header. And if I wanted to give it padding, you do P, and then we could do anywhere between 1 and 5. So P5 will give us that padding that we're looking for. Okay, look at that. Look at all that padding right there. P1 will remove some padding, but still have a little bit of padding attached. See it right there. Okay, and then if we only want to do left and right, we're going to do PX 5. Now they gave us padding in the left and right direction. Okay, and if we only want padding in the vertical direction, we just do PY. And now we have padding in the vertical direction for that particular header. All right, so again, with Bootstrap, all we're doing is we're adding classes to all our elements. We're not adding any CSS whatsoever. That's like the main takeaway that I want you guys to take away from this today, is that there's just a bunch of classes. If we go to the Bootstrap, this isn't it. If we go to the Bootstrap website and we look at the documentation, okay, this is just how to get started. All right, you're gonna see how there's a bunch of things for layout, and then it talks about all these things that we're talking about. So, and you see how it's just a doc container fluid. It's telling you this is the classes that we're gonna use. Div class container, and the contents go in here. This the documentation on this is pretty solid, and it's pretty easy for you to make advanced layouts just by snatching what's on the Bootstrap website, putting it in your code, and then removing what you don't need, and then just keeping the classes that you want. The only warning about that is that sometimes when you have like nested things, the inner elements rely on classes that are in the parent element. So just keep that in mind when you're snatching some of these styles here. So you have utilities, components, colors. So pretty much anything in Bootstrap has these colors: text primary, text secondary, text success, text danger. So if we wanted to change that heading that we have here, we could just do text dot danger, and if we come back over here, yeah. Sorry, one of my doing? Oh. And then that changes our text for us. Same thing with these buttons. So we have a button class, all right, button, BTN, and then BTN primary. Let's make this also dangerous. Okay, and then you have helpers to the BTN class, so this will make the button large. So we can make the button small too by doing BTN small. And again, it's on the classes. I kind of know some of the names of these classes already, so that's why I kind of change them. As you get familiar with it, you're going to be able to do these things yourself and just, okay, I know that this button is blue. I want to make it orange, so you're going to use like a button warning instead, or button danger, or yeah, warning. Same thing with the button class. And you see how these are like button, button, button? So this is one class that just gives it a button. This class will give the button a class of danger, and this is a class of button small, which is going to change the size of the button. All those classes are just kind of overriding the previous classes to some extent. See how the button got smaller now, and it's also red? And all we did was change a couple of classes. We didn't change any CSS.
Are those the only colors we can use in Bootstrap?
Well, we're going to talk about overriding the colors later. One of the things that I hate about seeing people use Bootstrap is when they don't customize like some of the look themselves, and you can just tell a site is built in Bootstrap. Like I could look at 100 sites and tell you that 90% of them are built on Bootstrap just by looking at them. And I can say, oh, that's Bootstrap, because I kind of know the regular colors and the regular layouts and the regular fonts they use already. So you can definitely override all that, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of this. So what else do we got? Let me see. So containers, padding, margins, and other fun styles. Okay, so the Bootstrap grid system. So I feel like this is one of the most powerful things about Bootstrap. So Bootstrap has a way to help us align our content and create a layout with a grid that it comes just pretty much built with. So the grid is a grid of 12 individual units. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, and then you can break them up into whatever size sections you want. So we could have a layout that's 8 columns wide on one side and then 4 columns on the other side, as long as it always breaks up into 12. So the grid always adds up to 12. So if we have 6 and 6, 12. So what if we wanted a 4-column layout? What would we need to use there? 3. How does everybody feel about this? What's up?
What about margins, paddings?
In the grid?
Yeah.
You can add margin and padding to the grid also, and it'll still, Bootstrap will not break the grid for you, like the other day, or yesterday we were doing it. If you add margin or padding, it will break the grid. With Bootstrap, you could add margin here or padding here, and it won't break your grid. So it'll still give you, if you have like a set of 4, you'll still have 3 columns, but with a little white space in here.
Okay. Cool.
Other questions? How do we feel about the grid? I know the grid is... Okay, so now we're going to see how to implement set grid. So whenever we see a website, let's go to FlatironSchool.com. Okay. And whenever I look at a website, I think, all right, this website, this is one row here. And this row, this is a column of maybe 12, and this is probably a column of 3. Okay? Over here, this is probably another row, and this is a column of 12. This is probably a column of 6. This is probably a column of 6. And this is probably a column of 12 with just the stuff aligned here in the center. Does that make sense to you guys? Kayla?
So it doesn't include those sides, it's 12 in the container and then it's 12 across the page.
Yeah, so what that means is that here, this could be a column of just completely 12, so it just takes up one big space. Okay, but we could just center align the stuff right here. So that's why when you only have one item, it's usually 12. So then when you have 2 items, it's probably 6. If you have 3 items, it's probably a column of 4. So if we have 3, you have 4 spaces taken up here, 4 here, and then 4 here to add up to 12. Does that make sense? What do we feel about that? Thumbs up. Good. Tom. No questions on it? No questions?
No.
Okay.
How do you set the columns? Like, what do you do?
We're gonna get into that right now.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna do code 2. All right, so over here we have a class of container, which we already know what that does. It just shrinks things. All right, to create columns, we have to nest them inside of a row. Okay, so we just add a class of row. Okay, and that div closes down here, and then our columns inside of that row are in are inside of that row container. Okay, this R1 class that you see here. Okay, that's just a class that I created so we could see them. And that's just background color, light blue. That's all that R1 is. That's my own style, just so we can see what this is. So if we open this up, so this is, at first I have some headings with a display class, which remember I told you it makes it bigger and it changes the text up a little bit. So if we open this up, these are our headings, okay, and then these are our columns here. The first, this right here, is this top row right here, okay? So this top row is done by creating a class row, stop highlighting, and then creating the columns that we want inside of it. Now, when we see column SM, that means column small. That means when the screen gets a certain size, like it's always from anything small and up, it's gonna display in this fashion. All right, and that might not make sense yet, but I've also created some columns down here where I've added a column large. So column large means that on larger screens, one of these columns is going to have a width of 5, another one's going to have a width of 5, and the final one's going to have a width of 2. So we could set the columns to be different sizes as long as they're 12, and they're going to be a little different. So you see, here's the first one, here's the second one, and here's the third one. So these two are pretty big over here. And let's add some margin to these guys too. M-1. So we could see where they end. Okay, the margin does seem to break our columns. No, it did not. I think we got to give it a class of border box. But anyway, now that we can see our columns, margin did break them, but you can see this one's a 5, this one's a 5, and this one over here is a 2, and you can tell the difference in the sizes here. What's up?
Why is it like so small? Like, why isn't it the whole screen?
Because we have a wrapped in container. So if we get rid of this guy, okay, and this one didn't fit over here because of the margin, so it just fell down.
And that's supposed to be a third and a sixth?
No, so when it's small, it's going to turn into a third when the screen gets to there. Now it's a third, okay? But when the screen gets larger, it's going to be 2 5s and then a 2. So 5 12s, 5 12s, and then 1 6. How do we feel about that? So? Yeah, the column, the grid system is something that's a little tricky to wrap your head around. The cool thing is that you can make your stuff look completely different on different devices. There's also like a D none. So if we do column large, I don't remember how to do that. I'd have to Google it. So if we get to column large, we could do D large 5, D dash none, I believe. And now large ones, that middle column should disappear if I remember correctly. Yeah, so wait. Did it just shoot itself down? No, it disappeared, right? Yeah. But it's always disappearing, and I only wanted to disappear when it's a certain size. So column LG5. Is it like that? I forgot the class name, but we could add a class to this guy to make it disappear after it gets to a certain size. So if you only want to show things on smaller screens, you can. You just have to do a little bit of Googling to figure out what the name is for that. Let me see something here. Cool. All right. Down here, I made an extra large column. So now on the extra large, this one's gonna overflow. Let's get this container margin top. Yeah. 5 to separate it from the other guys. Okay. So this one on extra large screens, we have it where it's gonna overflow. So we're gonna have 2 columns and the third column is gonna overflow below. And that's exactly what's happening here. But when we go down to a large screen, now we have a column that's 5, a column that's 5, and a column that's 2. So that's this one right here, 512s, 512s, and 1/2 here at the end. Is that right? Yeah. So, yeah, I put it on the wrong side. It was supposed to be on this.
Why does it 1/2? Wouldn't it be 6/12s instead of 2/12s?
So if we have 512s and 512s, it's 1012s, and then, no, it's 1/6, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1/6. And what did I put? 512s, yeah. So that's how the grid kind of just plays out into this. Now let's try to build something with Bootstrap really quick so we can go through the process of how I try to make a site. And what we're gonna try to do is, I hope, would be this by the time we're done. Okay? So we've already seen a bunch of stuff. Over here, these little icons, there is a library called Font Awesome that we can use, that you could just import things like classes. And the classes will add icons for you, and there's a gazillion different icons that you can add to your stuff. So let's see. What's the first thing we want to do? Let's create a new navbar. Great. We're gonna create a new folder. Not in there. Out here. I'm gonna call it Flatter. Is that what I call the site? Flatter, yeah. And that's us. Play beer pong and learn to code. All right, so over here, we're gonna do A, and we're gonna create a new index.html. Okay, and the first thing we need to do is write some HTML code in here, and then we have to do what? Import Bootstrap. So we're gonna go to getbootstrap.com and CSS only. For some things like modals, certain kind of scroll features that this has, pop-ups. You have to also include these other libraries here, which are JavaScript libraries that Bootstrap relies on. So, just so you know, these are always a good idea to just include anyway. You don't need to know JavaScript, you need to write it, but it'll make all your stuff function. All your Bootstrap things that you want to work are going to work, like the modals and whatnot. And all you do is you add that to the bottom of your body page down here. Okay? So now we've imported jQuery, something called LitPopper, and then something else called Bootstrap Minified.js. All right, so let's build out a nav bar. Nav, you know what? Why don't we just go to bootstrap.com, go to documentation, and let's snatch a nav bar. Components, navs, nav bar. So here's a nav bar with a bunch of extra crap that we don't need. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna bloop, bloop, copy that, bloop, toss that in there. All right, so nav bar, nav, mr auto. So we've got all this crap here: nav bar expand large, nav bar light, bg light. What does that mean? So why don't we take a look at this and see how it looks? All right, so we've got this nav bar here, and there's our nav bar. Okay, and it's got the functionality that we want, which is for it to shrink like this, and then for these things to pop up like that. Okay, so that's great. And we didn't do anything; we just copied and pasted some stuff. That's amazing. So if we want to play around and see what we can do with some things, like this says nav bar light, why don't we make this nav bar dark and see what that does for us? And save it. Okay, it made the nav bar dark. Didn't make the nav bar dark.
It's font white.
Yeah. So that means that give us the styling for a dark nav bar by making the font white. So we're gonna have to set the background here to dark. And now, bam! Look at that. Wow, amazing. Super. All right. Nav bar brand is this right over here, and it's usually a link that goes back to your home page. So ours is called Flatter. Let's save that. There it is, Flatter. Okay, the nav bar toggler. This is the button, okay, that we just, this is this button over here that only works when it's collapsed. So you gotta give it a class bar of nav toggler. It's a type button, and you gotta give this data toggle equals collapse. And the data target is, well, what's the div that's gonna have it? It's gonna be this one called nav bar supported content, which is down here, okay, in this div. And that's where all our stuff is gonna go once a thing shrinks down. Okay, so now that we know what that is, let's go into the UL. You guys know what a UL is? Unordered list. Usually we keep our links inside of an unordered list in a bunch of LIs. So now we see nav item active. If we go up here, active means that it's white like this. So in our case, we don't care about active because we don't know how to change it from active to something else when we do something, so let's get rid of that. Now they all look the same, but they still do this nice little hover effect.
Will it be active like this, the page that you're on?
Yeah, so how do you set that though? You're gonna have to do a little bit of something on your JavaScript or in your ERB file to be able to change that. So in this case, we're just getting rid of it because we're not doing any JavaScript or ERB, just so then we have a nav item. So this is our class, Li has a nav item, and then it's got a nav link, which is just a link, an A tag. Okay? So now we know that these are links. How many links do we have on this guy? We had 2, home and explore. Right? So if we had 2, and we've got 2 links right here, what do we need all this extra crap for down here? A form, God knows what else. Let's get rid of that.
Isn't the submit button? The search button?
Yeah, but we don't need a search bar. What are we searching for? We're just making our shit look good. All right. It's all right.
It's not recorded.
That's fine.
It is being recorded.
All right. So we've got home and link. It's all right. I could curse once in a while. All right, so now our links are on the left instead of on the right-hand side. Why is that happening? If we look in here, I think there's something with like an MR. Okay, MR auto on the nav links. What if we make this ML? I don't know. We already know MR is usually like margin, R is right, L is left, T is top, B is bottom. Okay, so let's change that up. Wow, amazing. Crazy. All right, cool. So what do we want to do next? We want to, do we want to finish the nav bar or do we want to finish it? Okay, cool. So from here, now is when our own styles come in and we get to override some of the Bootstrap styles, okay? So we could just write our style right at the top here. Style, okay.
Shouldn't it be inside the head?
That could be anywhere. Yeah, I think, let's see, body. Let's give the body also a class of BG dark. Oof, ominous body now. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. All right, cool. So in the style, we want to do the nav bar. It's a class. And we want to just set the opacity to maybe what, like 0.5? And we're not going to be able to tell because the body got this BG dark. Let's give the body its own color. Body. Oh. Ooh, is that what we're going for? All right. Whoa. Done something short there, gold. What did I do here? Oh. It's being overridden because this is a inline style. No, it's not. Because this is, I don't know. Oh, because a class selector is more powerful than just a tag selector, and I had a body tag here. Okay, there we go. Ooh. All right, so everything inside this nav bar, we want to kind of give it a bit of a container. So div class equals container, and we have to go right above the nav. Okay, that brings everything in. Nice, cool. I wrapped everything inside of the nav bar, like the contents of the nav bar itself, in a container. Yep. And the container class comes from Bootstrap. Let's see. This one had what over here? This had some sort of border. And in our case, let's give it a border bottom of 1 pixel, no, 3 pixels. Solid 5 brick. Oh yeah, now we're getting places. Cool. All right. We could probably even make that a little fatter. There we go. All right. So now it's starting to look a little bit like this. Just our colors are different, right? Maybe we could make this a little more or less opaque if we wanted to, but that's that section. All right, cool. So one other thing that we want to do is from this guy is I'm going to steal the font awesome CDN so we can make those check marks. And again, we're just importing a style sheet that ends right. Hold on, what do I have 2 here? Link rel style sheet. Okay. The other one's from Bootstrap. This one's its own thing. So where is our style sheet? Save that there. We got our script tags at the bottom. And to make a class for the checkboxes, we're gonna go below this. We're gonna call this the main content, main dot container. And guys, the way that I'm doing this, main dot container, you guys have that in all VS Code. It comes with Emmet. You just type the name of whatever tag you want. You put a dot if you want to turn it into a class, and then you put a hash if you want to pass in like an ID. So I could just do a bunch of classes like container, dot deflex, dot display dash 4, and it'll create a div for me with that, with all those classes. Did you guys know that little trick? It's good to know. It'll get you places quickly.
What is main?
Main is semantic HTML. It says this is going to be the main section of our site. So remember yesterday we were talking about how divs are a way to contain your stuff, but it has no meaning. Main is like a div, just with a little bit of meaning for you and for the browser. What's up?
Well, I couldn't get Emmet to work, but Rails snippets does the same thing.
Rails snippets is the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I don't know where Emmet is. I don't know what that is.
it should be might only work with HTML files from like your default, but there's a setting that you could change in your VS Code JSON settings where you can use Emmet and you could specify which file. So like for ERB, if you wanted to use Emmet, you would have to just specify ERB use equals true or something like that.
But Emmet is like an extension, right?
No, it comes with VS Code.
Oh, it comes with.
Yeah, it's an extension too, but it comes with VS Code just natively. You don't have to install anything or install an extension.
Oh.
Mhm.
Well, Rails snippets.
Yeah, Rails snippets does pretty cool stuff. Anything that saves you some typing is great. So what did we have over here? We had an image, right? And so let's add an image. And the class is going to be, how do you do a fluid image? Let's Google it. Fluid image. Image fluid, that's the name of it. So we're going to take this. Actually, let's just jack this whole thing right here. And then the SRC, we're going to have to go out of the folder that we're in into code last, images, Flatiron School.
How does it autocomplete when you dot actually show you the options?
What's that?
When you did the dot, how did it actually show you the options? Yeah. Which extension?
When I did the dot. Oh, no, that's just VS Code too. It knows. Yeah, so because we're not in a Rails project, we're in just the regular directory tree. You can do that in yours, but like if you have something in your public folder, like you're doing the exact path from your public folder in a Rails app. But if you were doing like the exact path, it'll autocomplete it for you.
Okay.
So it looks like that image shouldn't be in a container. So maybe let's take it out of the flow here and just put it by itself. All right, cool. And the image class, we're going to give it a background. You know what? Let's just create a div instead of that. Div. And we're going to call this guy our image. Background is going to be, we need URL here. So we stepped out, then we need to go into, that's right,
Yeah, so it usually doesn't have anything.
code last, images, flat, you know what? Copy relative path. Bloop. Cool. So
You need to put the image back.
I didn't put the image back.
Oh, sorry, never mind.
Our image.
Maybe div.image?
No. Should be fine.
Maybe they didn't have a hide in the width.
No, the quotes aren't gonna work because we're not at a browser. Like, I'm not serving this up like we do in Rails. This is coming straight from the file system. So, all right, you know what? Let's cheat a little bit. What did I put in flatter here? I had a lot more stuff going on here. Home inner container, row, and where did I put my styles? Background, let's just jack these styles here. That was in the home section though. This was what? Code. Code last. There we go. Cool. All right, so now we have our image in there, and let's put our image, let's wrap that bad boy in an overlay.
Wait, so what was the issue with the image? What was this?
I think it was just, no, I think it's the way that I had it spelled out. I wasn't, no,
The
could have
URL
been.
itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's, I'm gonna go back and see how I had it
You
a
didn't
minute
have
ago.
the slash code last, I think, or, no, just kidding.
You didn't have the size. Background size.
Is that it? No, what the hell
And
did I
then you
have?
said minimum something.
Minimum height?
Yeah.
No, I had something else going on here.
And we can just
I
paste it
think the
under it.
semicolon after the parentheses is too far away.
The semicolon after the parent? No, no, that shouldn't matter.
Maybe just paste it underneath.
What the hell is the difference here?
Oh, that doesn't have the
background
code.
color instead of background. Your old file,
Mhm.
background color instead of background.
I have background color?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. / code last. All right, cool. All right, so we've got this image going on here now. Now, the problem is that it moved our border down to the bottom over here. I don't like the look of that. What did we give a border to? The body, and we want to give that border to the nav bar. There we go. Cool. Now inside of this, we are going to add a row. Where are we? Main class container. And now we're going to add a class of row. Okay, and then we're going to add a class of column 6 maybe. And yeah, let's make it a little bigger. Column 8. And this one's going to be a column 4. Okay, and this is where our things are going to go, our headings. So we gotta have a checkbox. Now I forgot how to make the checkboxes. It is a style from Font Awesome. And the way that you do those is I is the element, like the HTML element, and then you give a class like FA.FAS something else. I don't remember what it is, so let's just look it up in our other thing here. Right here. Oh. Okay, and that should give us a checkbox there. And then we want some headings here, h1 dot display 5.
Is Font Awesome like part of Bootstrap, or is that something that you have downloaded?
Font Awesome is something that we can include through a CDN like we use with Bootstrap. And yeah, so to find it, we do Font Awesome on Google. Don't go to the Font Awesome website because they got whack. So just Google Font Awesome CDN. And this first site, this is Bootstrap CDN. Click on that. And then, no, that's not a good one because we're on 5 point something. The next one, CDNJS. We come over here and we look for Font Awesome 5. Okay, and the one that says all. So you just copy that and then you add it to your style sheet as a link. So let's see how this guy looks. Woo! All right, but that's outside of our container. So let's get rid of the container class in this guy. And let's put our image inside of that. So as you can see, guys, like I suffer a lot with this stuff too. And it's just a matter of taking the time to figure out where everything is. So we've got the checkbox, but now the check is on the left, this guy's on the right. So to fix that, we can give this a class of deflex. And that should keep them next to each other. No.
Did you do the dot there, or is it inside of the class?
Div class equals d.flex. And I gotta close this div here. What you say about thing?
Why do you need the dot there if it's already inside like the class type thing?
Oh, it's d-flex, I'm sorry.
But also in the H1 class where it says dot, is that how you did it for the display 5 dot d?
No, I don't, yep. Thanks. What's this div doing here? Ah.
Now you gotta close the top one, right above it.
All right, so now my checkbox is next to this guy here, okay? And now that we have that inside of that column, we're going to do that 2 more times. Okay, and there are our checkboxes, but they look like crap. So this display, we're gonna do BG, no, we're gonna do, how do we make that light text in Bootstrap? It was what, text muted, text white. So text white. Actually, we could just add it to the parent class. Right here. Oh, wrong page. All right. Looks pretty awful, but it's, you know, we're getting there. It's similar to this. This one last night took me, well, about like an hour and a half to do. Googling stuff, trying to get things right. So, you know, we're not gonna get it exactly like this because I'm trying not to look at the other code. But essentially, this is kind of how you play with the styling to make it look like the thing that you want. So on the other side, we have a column 4. This is where we're going to put our Bootstrap card. So if we, that's this guy over here. If we go back to Bootstrap and we look up card, cards in Bootstrap. So we can snatch this guy. Okay, and we don't want a card image top. Card body is going to be sign up. Card BG primary. Where's my... Okay, so it's kind of looking like it. So some quick example text. So what do we have in this one? Sign up, fill out to register. Okay, again, we want the text to be a little different. Text white, and then text center. Okay, and then we want to put a form group in here. And we're going to go in here, form group. I can type awesome when I'm up here. I love it. So we've got forms, and we could just jack this right here.
Will this make it like a good copy paster?
Huh? This would make you an amazing copy paster, the best. That's why I type so terribly. Okay, so we want to put that in here. We come back, look at that. All right, there's some crap that we don't want, like this email address, placeholder password, label. No label, this will never share your stuff, that's a lie, we will always share your stuff. And this label for email address is gone. Okay, so now this guy looks like it needs some padding to bring everything in or give it some space. So this was our image container. So this would be P3. 0.5. And we only want top and bottom padding. Okay. This text looks like it's a little too big compared to what we had. I've already got it as small as we can make it. Let's add a class of small here. That's too small now. That's awful. Yeah.
Medium?
I don't think there is a class medium. Yeah. Modest. And we need an overlay so we can see the text. So on this guy, on our image, let's give it a class of overlay. Remember how we did RGBA before? We're going to do background, RGBA. We want to make it black. And then 0.4 maybe. That wasn't good. So
Are you able to just hover over that icon and then just like drag to select what color you want?
oh yeah, you can. So if you just
Aren't you
hang out there.
Aren't you overwriting the picture?
I believe so, yeah, because we're in the same class. So what I want to do is add that to a new div down here. Our image, so the last div is after the main. Okay, so see now it's a little darker, we can read a little better. All right, we're kind of getting there. It's not great, but again, like perfecting it is gonna take us some time. So I think I'm gonna leave it here. Does anyone have any questions? Was this helpful?
Overriding methods.
Overriding methods?
Overriding Bootstrap methods.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing here. With our styles, where do we put some styles here? We don't have any styles, cool. So, well, yeah, we should. Oh, this one over here. Okay, so we did the nav bar. We overrode it. We wrote opacity 0.5, and then we did border bottom 5 pixels. If we want to change the primary colors, like this thing that we put as primary, where was it? Text white, text center, was the form? We did the card as primary, so if we want to change the primary color, instead of doing BG primary there, we could do BG primary, and because our style falls after the Bootstrap styles, we can just override one specific thing. In this case, it's going to be the background color. And what color do you guys want to make that card now?
White smoke.
Oof. We're not going to be able to read the text, but I like where your head's at. BG primary, white smoke. What's happening here? the Bootstrap style is above us. Yep. Yeah, well, remember this guy? There we go. All right. Any other questions? How do we feel? What do we think about Bootstrap?
Copy pasta.
It's a lot of copy pasta and then trying to finagle it to your own stuff. Yeah.
And then normally though, your CSS files can be separate, and it's gonna cover all pages, so
Mm-hmm.
technically, like, it wouldn't be writing the CSS in the file with it.
No, so we could just put this in a CSS file. All this stuff that I wrote right here, I can take this all out of here, okay? And I could just put it in a new folder here or in a new file and call it style.css, right? And then paste all that stuff right back in there. I gotta get rid of this stuff here, that's the style. Okay, but then in our HTML, we just have to link it. So underneath the Bootstrap, we do link CSS, style.css. There it is. It wrote it for me. And everything should still be the same. Okay, so we don't have to write the styles in the HTML itself. You can put them in another file, or you can put them in your application.css in Rails, and that'll override all your styles, as long as it's below wherever we are importing Bootstrap, which is right here.
So we don't have to put it in the style sheet of the application, it can go with the ERB file and view.
It can, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, still the same. Cool. That's Bootstrap, guys.
So what's our next lecture?
Whew, I'm doing another one for maybe another like 8 months.
Ah, really?